Hey, what's up guys, it's me Naren Ramesh and today I'm going to be talking about the next part in my series on how to improve on Pyraminx. In this part, we're going to be going a specific layer by layer method, so if you're into L4E or learning that method, you can skip this video, although I do think it'll still be useful to you, as if you do end up with LBL last layer cases, this will help you in executing them. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So to give a basic overview of what this part is going to describe, in your solve, you really have two steps per se when you're talking about the LBL method, which is layer by layer. So obviously you make a layer, make a layer of some sort, then you insert pieces, and once you make your entire layer, you have one last layer case that you have to solve in order to finish the puzzle, and this is excluding tip solutions. So basically there are three main cases you can get, and I'll be going over all of them, and mainly be talking about different angles for each of these cases because from experience I know that knowing multiple angles to one case can be extremely helpful. So first I'll be going over two flip, which is basically the base case for the Pyraminx. It's the most simplest case by far, and what it is it's basically two edges flipped. These can be really located anywhere in the puzzle. It's still called the two flip. It can be from this angle as well, this angle. So really I'll be going over how to do all of them. So let's begin. So how do you recognize the two flip? The two flip is effectively just two pieces. They're not swapped with each other, but they're in their same location, which means that they're oriented correctly, but they're simply permuted incorrectly. And the way to solve this is really simple. You want to basically do the following algorithm, or really take out the edge and place it in this way. It can be mirrored. So you have the algorithm that I use: L prime U L U prime, L prime, or L, my bad, R prime L prime R. So that's the algorithm I use to solve the two flip. So here it is quickly. So now we'll talk about the mirrored one. We have R U prime R prime U, R prime L R L prime. So now I'll be talking over different ways to execute it, but before that I'll talk about different ways to even look at the case. So you have your standard approach, which is obviously you have this, which I just talked about, which is where they're both on the last top layer. However, this case can be experienced in different ways. What I'm talking about is this way. So this is a rather uncommon way of looking at it. You might think that, oh, it's just a sideways version of it, but if you look more closely, you realize that this yellow side could be thought of as a V. You're effectively making this yellow side your new layer, and by that what this does is it makes your layer one piece away from being solved. So in this case, which it's very possible to get this case, by the way, you have to be prepared on what to do. So if you get a case like this and you recognize it immediately, some people I've seen simply rotate it and do the two flip case, and while that is all right, it's not the best solution by any means. One good solution that I use through experimentation, I suppose, is simply taking out the edge like so when it's on your right. So obviously you want the flipped edge on the bottom to be in front, so you don't want it to be something like this. If it's on your right, make sure it's in front before you do your solution. If the other twisted edge is on the right, perform this algorithm, which is effectively again taking out the edge and reinserting it: R U R prime, and then a lefty sledge, which is just L R prime L prime R, and then the AUF. Now you have, if it's on the left, if the unsolved edge is on the left, then what you want to do is the following: L prime U prime L, and then a righty sledge, R prime L R L prime. So here's what the two cases look quickly, and from the other angle, Yeah, so they can be executed pretty quickly, and in fact, sometimes you can execute them faster than the standard two flip. So now I'm going to be going over ways to execute. So for two flip, there are really multiple ways to execute. Prior to switching, I used to solve my two flips like this with the regrip style, which consists of two very fast jerky movements. You have this and this, and the reverse could be used. You could start with the sledge and then move into this. So really, whichever works. The real key to remember with it is whichever side you're doing the hedge, the two flip on, and by that what I mean is whether you're going to do it like this or whether you're going to do it like this. So those are the two ways to two flip when it's on your top layer. And what I'll be recommending is to remember the following. Basically, it's if you're going to start your algorithm with the right side, make sure to end on the left side. So for example, if you start with the righty sledge, make sure to end on the lefty back insert. Similarly, if you start with the lefty sledge, make sure to end on the right back insert. If you start, but here's the thing, if you're going to do the if you're not going to start with the sledge, if you're going to start by moving the piece back like so, then it stays on the same axis. And by that what I mean is if you start with the lefty takeout basically and bring it back, you have to do a lefty insert. Start with the righty taking out the edge here, you have to bring it back with the righty insert. So that's kind of a rule to remember in case in the heat of a solve basically you start with something, don't do the incorrect insert like that. Make sure that if you're starting with it, you remember the insert you're doing. So that's really about it for two flips. Choose what's best for you. That's what I'm the real what you should take away from this. Obviously some people like myself do that very quickly. A lot of people as well, particularly I see this in top first solvers as well, who have wrist turns and jerky movements with their hands, might prefer to do this, especially if you're canceling into your two flip. This might work. Personally for me it's not the best, but again it's all with experimentation. Now let's get into the two more complicated last layer solutions. The first I'm going to be talking about is this. So here we're specifically going to be talking about different solutions. So obviously knowing different solutions for the same case is good because you can execute it from multiple angles, and executing it from multiple angles is really what helps you maintain fluidity in the solve and avoid cube rotations or puzzle rotations, which is especially useful in fast events like 2x2 and Pyraminx. So what I'm specifically talking about from experience here is that this is the algorithm that basically it is one move off, but really this got me my NR solution minus tips. And the reason I talk about this is because I was not really the best Pyraminxer out of all the people competing at that competition, Shastra 2019, but I knew this particular algorithm which many of them didn't know and didn't apply in the solve, and not being the best Pyraminxer there, I was still able to get the NR while everyone else didn't even get sub 2. So I think it's really important to know your algs and execute them from multiple angles to avoid cube or puzzle rotations. So without further ado, let's get into this algorithm. So first is obviously the most standard one. We're talking about obviously the way you recognize it is like this. If you can't visually, just remember it. Basically how it would look is you have kind of inverse version of this, which is like the cycle here, but so you have these two cases and then you have this one. Although they might look very similar, make sure to remember the difference between them. So this is this case and then you have this case. So here you kind of have this edge, this needs to come here to here. So you have a cycle of red, this red to here to here. So that's your kind of cycle. So just remember that. Here to here to here. That's what you need to remember to basically recognize and execute this case. From this angle, it's executed like this. Make sure to execute it correctly. R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, L, R, L prime. So it has probably the middle move count out of the three algorithms I'm going to describe here, but it can be executed fast nonetheless. One thing I'm going to be saying about the execution is that there are two ways to really do the U move. Since you're doing an R, doing this regripping to something like this, so you can perform this U move for the second move is not too optimal. So what I would recommend is, well, first of all, obviously if you do this R move, regripping for you there is also pretty bad. So what you really want to do is do a U move with your left pointer. There are two real ways to do this, or yeah, so you can do R and then this flick, so like that, or you could do something like this. So sometimes I find myself doing this to make sure that it's like a safe solve, because a lot of times this flick ends up overshooting or something like that, which I don't really want. So sometimes I grip it like this, and I do this with this part of my thumb, so like this. So when I get the case like this, I do, and then the sledge. So that's the execution for that case. Now we're going to move on to the second iteration of this case, which is from this angle. Now for this, this is the angle I did my NR from, and really what you want to remember is that this is the lowest move count. So if you get it from this angle, make sure to execute it as quickly as possible. And yeah, let's begin. R prime, U prime, L prime, U, L, R. It's a very short algorithm that can be done very quickly, and really you shouldn't be wasting any time. You should basically go into it immediately, because getting it from this angle is very good. It's probably the best you're going to get. And yeah, I really like this algorithm. Before, I even used to, at times, if I got the case from different angles, for example, if I got it from this angle, I would even switch to that. And while that is sometimes good, depending on where you come from the LL, sometimes it's a lot better to just directly move into this algorithm. So I wouldn't recommend changing or doing like basically doing an adjustment of the top layer in order to get an easier case. I would recommend simply using the case that you first get. Now I'm going to be talking about the final iteration of this case, which is when you get from this angle. This is probably the worst angle possible, but there is still an algorithm for this, and it's a very high move count alg. So if you suffer from bad TPS, make sure to not use this in any competition scenario until you get it down very well. But the algorithm goes like this: R prime, U prime, R prime, L, R, L prime, U, R. And it is a very high move count algorithm, but it can be done with insanely fast TPS. However, even though I'm recommending this alg to you if you get it from this angle, I myself sometimes struggle with it, and sometimes end up just doing the U move and doing this algorithm, because sometimes it can be faster. However, sometimes I do find it a bit awkward, like just then, which is why this algorithm, it can be done with very high TPS, as you can be seen here. See that was very high TPS, and it takes very little time. So if you can practice this algorithm down and get fast and comfortable with it, I would recommend switching to it, because it's extremely quick. Now we're going to be talking about basically the kind of inverse case that I mentioned before, which is if you get this. Make sure to remember the difference here. Here the difference is that the cycle kind of goes the opposite way, with the edge cycle going here to here to here. So that's what you want to remember. So just remember that, and kind of try to differentiate the two cases in your head before executing. Now let's begin with this. So obviously you have the case from this angle, which is like the standard angle that most people learn first. The algorithm goes like this: L, R prime, L prime, R, U, R, U prime, R prime. So in case you didn't recognize that, it's basically the inverse of the algorithm to solve this case. If you do that, you'll get this case, and if you inverse that, you get a solved puzzle, which means that these two algorithms that I just showed are inverses of each other. Now we're going to move on to the second from this, the second recognition. Obviously it's basically the similar one to the NR one, and it's basically again an inverse. So these are all inverses of each other, which is one thing to remember. So the algorithm goes like this: R prime, L prime, U prime, L, U, R. Again, lowest move count, so if you get it, make sure to execute quickly. Try not to pause too much on it, don't be too locky on it, just go straight into it, do it quickly. Yeah, now we're gonna the final one. And really for this one, one thing I would recommend is not doing this algorithm. So you have this front case, and while you could do the inverse, which is like this, so you have basically the inverse of the, or not inverse, in this case it's the lefty version of the of this algorithm. So if you get it from this case, I taught you to do that. And while that's quite fast, if you do it the opposite way, from this angle, doing the lefty version, which is the non-dominant version for me, is rather slow. So basically don't do the non-dominant version for this particular case. However, if you're a lefty solver, I will teach you this case so that you can apply it in case the other one is harder for you. So let's get into it. L, U, L, R prime, L prime, R, U, L prime. So that's that case, and with that we basically finish all the last layer cases for Pyraminx with LBL. Make sure to practice all of these very well and email me for questions and such, because obviously I realize by this part of the tutorial it can be a bit confusing, especially for newer Pyraminx solvers. So email me with questions or send me Instagram DMs. I'll make sure to respond to as many as possible. Sorry if I've not responded to the ones you've already sent, because I've been a bit busy, but yeah. So all the algorithms for these cases will be in the description below. Make sure to follow along with them while you're doing the solve. And yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope it was useful to you, and more importantly, I hope if you already knew some of these algorithms, you found the alternate angles for these cases and better ways to execute them. Execution really depends all upon you. So for example, if we're talking about a case like this, it can be executed like this, it can be executed like this. For a case like this, you want to simply do standard finger tricks, but with this flick here. For this case, you want to again do that flick there. And similarly for the lefties, I just feel that it's important to, especially for cases where such as these, where flicks are better, you recognize that a flick is better. And really you should be able to choose your own finger tricks for yourself, because using someone else's finger tricks are definitely not the best solution for you, especially on Pyraminx, because it's a very subjective event. I believe a lot of people have very different turning styles. As you can see, the top solvers such as Drew, Brads and such all have very different turning styles, and they all with the same method turn very differently. So it really all depends on you. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you have any questions on finger tricks or algorithms or anything, really email me or message me. And yeah, just really do that, because if I wasn't able to get across to you enough in these like 20 minutes or so, make sure that you get more help from me, because I'm here to help you. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope it helped you, and I'll see you on my next video. Make sure to subscribe and like this video, because it takes me quite a bit of time to make these videos and I really enjoy them. So yeah, thank you. Bye.